Hello, everyone. Welcome
Hello.
back to Resilient Events Podcast. It's been a few days since we recorded, so we might be a little rusty, but we're both pros. So, this is episode 10, we think. This is the 10th episode we recorded.
Double digits.
And high five to you, John. I can't wait to celebrate in person whenever we get a chance to celebrate in person.
Yeah,
But
it'll be
we
fun.
did a little intro on myself a couple episodes back. And you can't get to 10 episodes without really getting to know the people behind the podcast or video show or live show, whatever it is,
Got it.
because it's important to know who's giving you the advice, and maybe we'll pick up on some extra topics or some things that you might want to learn about us. So today's episode's all about you, John.
Yay.
How do you
And I
feel
just
about
want
that?
I'm feeling rusty, but I think we're real. We're rusty but real, right?
I like that.
Yeah.
Real, resilient event show.
There we go.
Russ, what we need to think of another
Another R word.
R, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then we'll be pirates.
No. And not dinosaurs. Okay.
Yeah.
So we are going to go through a little bit about your past professional history, how you got into events. But I really, really, really just want to start off. I heard a rumor that you used to manage a paintball
All
field.
rumors. I did manage a paintball field.
Yeah, let's start there.
At the ripe age of 17, believe it or not. So,
Nice.
short story, I was working at Dairy Queen, which is, I don't know if you have Dairy Queens in America.
Yes,
All
we
right.
do.
Slanging burgers and ice cream. And the lady that drove through the drive-through liked my service so much, she's like, you should leave this place and come work for me. And I was like, okay. She gave me her number. And the next weekend, I quit Dairy Queen and I was working at a paintball field.
Great.
Super fun. And turns out I just worked harder than most paintball field people. So she had me as being like the boss after basically a month on the job. And I was ordering around 40-year-olds.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm sure they love that.
But yeah, it was super fun because most of our business was like stags. So people on like before they get married, if people don't know the term stag.
That's
but,
a bachelorette for our
yeah.
American audience.
There you go. Yeah. And I ended up like, so I was like ordering, like, I had like this really tight, like army green MASH shirt. And I was like ordering around like a teams of 30-year-olds, like telling them like,
Nice.
like a military sergeant. It was amazing. So that was kind of like my first event experience, in the first, like, kind of speaking to a crowd, right? Ordering around groups of like 30 older people was weird at that time.
But you rocked it because it led
Loved
you to
it.
being comfortable on camera right now in front of everyone.
Super fun. And yeah, just in that, I just learned that the more you can entertain people while you're speaking to them, the more you capture their attention, right?
Right.
So that helped. And then
there's a something to say with the gift of gab. Sometimes we just have to like be thrown into it. I'm sure you like were not worried about talking to this group. You just did it because you had to do it.
That's right. Yeah.
We definitely, I mean, if I think about like my involvement when I was younger too, like I was not forced, but like up in front of crowds, and it was fine.
Right.
But you get older and you're like, oh no, I can't do this. But like you totally did it when you were younger. So
yeah,
it's a good reminder.
Yeah, absolutely. And then somehow, it's just because my neighbor did it, I became a garbage man.
Yeah.
And I did that for a couple of years, and it was better money than the paintball field. A lot of work. I think that my heaviest day, I put 70,000 pounds on the truck in a day.
Wow.
Like wild. And ran like 10 miles, right?
So you weren't on those like new age ones where you like just do the lever and like
the old stinky style where you pick it up with your hands. It was the stories you don't want to hear. Maybe when we meet in person, I can tell you about those.
Oh, thank you.
Those aren't going on the air.
I will write that down. I can't wait to hear those garbage stories.
Exactly. And then started moving on up, became a bartender. So one of my garbage friends moved to Big White Ski Resort. And I was like, what are you doing living at a ski resort? He's like, man, you just got to try. And so I went and visited him, and like I was there for 1 weekend and made the decision to move out.
Nice.
And the only real way to make money at a ski resort is a server bartend. So I was bartending. I'd only been a bartender for 2 weeks by the time I got there. And 2 months later, I was managing one of the biggest venues on the hill.
Wow.
And same managing, I was like the nighttime manager. So I'd manage the nighttime staff and that, but then I was also running events. And
Mhm.
so we took it from like the seediest dive bar you've ever seen in your life into the busiest nightlife place by the end of that season.
Mhm.
And so like, I think there's one stat in the month of December, which is the busiest month at any ski hill. We doubled their sales over the previous year. And it was
Wow.
just by doing like regular event programming that was super interactive for the people that showed up. So just
Like what? What are we talking about?
jam nights. So like getting people up on stage, which they promote themselves, right? So they're always telling their friends they're going to be playing on stage. So it like really
Right.
promotes itself. Totally illegal now, but we were doing boat races. That's like 4-person drinking teams where they race each other to drink beers.
Mm.
That was super interactive and probably I don't know, like deadly, bad
Yeah.
alcoholism kind of things.
Right.
But and then other thing, just like bringing in DJs and then letting people doing like a DJ jam night as well, where we had like we'd let them use the equipment,
Mhm.
so people could choose their own music. So it was all about that interactivity.
Now I wanna go.
It was a good time. But yeah, that got me really into sales, or sorry,
Mhm.
like really into like promotions. I mean,
Mhm.
in terms of like getting things done at the bar, and yeah, eventually it got to the point where I really thought that I could do better than the owner. Right.
Yeah.
And so for me, for whatever reason, being stupid and young, my first thoughts was like, I'll go to school for this. So I went to business school.
Mm.
Left the mountain, went to business school with a plan of creating my own business someday.
Well, I mean, that's definitely the way to go, I think. I mean, it led you here, but it's interesting that you wanted to go to business school because I think, well, I mean, I don't know if it's like a gender thing, but like I was involved in events and all that, but I never thought about going to business school, no matter
Hmm.
how, until like after when I actually had a business, right? Like what
Yeah.
can I learn that I haven't learned, on the job? So it's pretty
Yeah.
interesting,
But
this
at the same time,
mentality.
I think I could have got further faster if I just started a business.
Hmm.
I don't know. Or maybe done
You
both
never
at once.
know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to say,
I
right?
think it's people's learning styles and how they apply things because you can learn everything in a book, but that doesn't necessarily give you the right. I mean, it could prevent you from actually starting a business because
Yeah.
you haven't done all the things that they say you
I
need to
think that
do
you
to be.
can know everything from a book, but knowing
Yeah,
is not actually like learning at the same time. Like
right,
it's learning is more like when you build habits of like how to get things done and you don't have to think about it to get it done.
right.
Does that make sense? Like when it's practiced, right? If you just think about it, it's not it's not actually doing it. Again,
Yeah.
it's planning, it's not doing, right?
The ideation phase of any business or idea is fun because you can be creative, there's not a set thing, but then you could get stuck, like you said, in the ideation of it and not actually implement anything to see,
Right.
and implementing like an MVP product or implementing something to like test it.
Yeah.
You may never get there because you didn't do all these other things that you're told to do or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Right. But
yeah.
yeah, in business school, went through a couple different ideas of what I would do,
Mhm.
but definitely fell in love with like the software as a service business model.
Mhm.
It's like the ultimate dream. Like in theory, you can create this software that people just know how to use it, and they just keep paying you money, and you don't have to build any more software. Right? Turns
Yeah.
out that's really it's easy to build software. It's really hard to build software that people want to pay for and they can use all by themselves. Definitely.
Right. Right.
Uh, and so we're working on that day
Yeah.
after day. Um,
Yes.
but
So, okay, so you did business school, but you weren't you were just doing your side jobs while you were in business school. And
yeah,
then what was the first thing that came out of?
that was Buzz at 1.0.
Yeah.
And so the original version of it started from an event. So it was actually when I was still in business school. I was at a
Mhm.
fair. I had a really bad experience with a food vendor. There was like 50,000 people there. Like 50 people just lined up for this food vendor. And literally my food was burnt, garbage, and expensive. And I threw it away. And I just like looked at that lineup and I'm like, I'm not going to go tell all these people that all the burgers are burnt because I just don't have the time. But I wish I could somehow share that with them.
Mhm.
And this was like 2013, right?
Mhm.
And so I just had like my first smartphone. I was like, how does this have location? It has internet, and I can't easily share information with the people nearby.
Mm.
So that's kind of where it started. And of
That's
course, there's like a million social mobile local apps coming out at that time. So
right.
a ton of people going in that direction, but it was definitely a problem that hadn't been solved. So
Yeah, I don't think it's still solved because
no,
there's
it's
not,
not.
there's like which app do you get the communications out? And do you have to do them all just to get them out?
Yeah,
And then what is the messaging? Who's the audience? Stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not done yet, that's for sure.
No.
But it's tough. So we thought we had a great idea for it. Turns out the idea for it wasn't that great, but we built it anyways. So that was like big mistake number one, is just building before really knowing that it was going to work. But I have one of my best friends is an amazing computer programmer, and so
Oh,
we
even
had the
better.
idea and we had the capacity and we wanted to get started. And it eventually led somewhere, but it was a windy route,
Yeah.
right? But yeah, so that's kind of how that started. And then being in business school still, I was like, where can I use this regularly? Because like I can't just throw it at like fairs all the time.
Mhm.
And so I was like, man, the same technology that we built could be used in classrooms. So
Mhm.
basically what we built was an iPhone and Android app where you could write a message, press send, and everybody nearby would instantly be able to see that.
Mm.
They wouldn't necessarily get a notification, which would be insane if too many people posted things, but they'd at least be able to see it, right?
Mhm.
Um, and so if people were checking in, they'd be able to like just communicate with just the people around them. Uh,
Mm. Like the
and
fly on the wall.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Okay, so,
yeah,
like, what are other people saying? What's going on? What's the best if at the fair, what's the best vendor?
yeah,
Because you can't just look through a list and be like, "Oh, I wanna go there." You have
right.
to go to each one to find out what's the best one, and yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
that's,
And
cool.
so it was fun to work on. And so we
Yeah.
turned it into, so it was also like a live chat. So once you like jumped on a thread, it was a live chat, right?
Mhm.
Um and so I started being in school talking about this to people in class, and everybody's like, well, we could just use this in class. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, we could. And that was really fun for a while. So
Mhm.
that took it from something that like we could get people to use it kind of regularly, right?
Mhm.
And so we had
Right.
a ton of fun with it. But it was tough because we're in university class, and professors not too excited about letting you pitch a chatting app to their students. They want their students to pay attention to them, not
Yes.
be like just texting each other the whole class,
Right.
right? So it
Which
was
happens anyways,
yeah,
regardless if
it
you have
does,
an app
yeah.
or not.
But it was tough to get like the buy-in. Like it was tough
Yeah.
to launch it, right? Because like
Mhm.
we'd have to, when a professor would let me in, it was
Mhm.
easy. Like I could just tell the class, it would take 2 minutes. People would download it, they'd use it, they'd think it was really fun, right?
Mhm.
But then trying to launch outside of the classroom because I couldn't get in every classroom.
Yeah.
The tough thing was it had this like really high network effect barrier. So
Mhm.
people in the hallways, I'd be telling them, they'd be like, wow, that's awesome. They'd download it, but then they'd never end up using it because if they went, there's like, 40,000 people at the university. If they go into a class where nobody else has used it, then it's useful for them or not, it's useless for
Mhm.
them. Right.
Mhm.
And so that was like kind of the barrier for that classroom implementation of that.
Mhm. Yeah. Huh. That's nice.
Um,
It's good feedback though from the
Yeah,
marketplace.
exactly. So
You
we
know?
we just kept testing and learning new places.
Yeah.
And then so we started going to a lot of events, like pitch events to
Mhm.
start it out. And at those events, we got even higher download rates. And it turns out that the event organizers were like, hey, this could be an audience engagement tool.
Yeah.
Um,
Hmm.
and so we started getting some support from them,
Mhm.
we started getting like 2 times the regular event mobile app download rate, which honestly is awful. It's under 50% of people will download the mobile app for an event. I don't even know why some people try to use those. Like when less than 50% are using it and some people are paying hundreds of thousands of dollars, that's wild
Yeah.
to me. But so
Communication. It's
yeah,
communication.
but so we were getting like almost like 70%, 80% download rates at
Mhm.
events.
Mhm.
But then, like as we were talking to people, just learning more, people, a lot of the other 30%, like why didn't you download it? It's just like they didn't have the space on their phone, or apps weren't cool anymore, or they thought they'd just use it one time. They didn't want to download it, so we made a shift to the web.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when we did that, we got up to around 90% participation rates. Yeah, which
I
was
mean, you're
insane.
right in terms of like space and like, oh, another app to download, another
Got to
notifications
install
to,
it.
yeah,
Gonna take
right.
data at the time was important, right?
Hmm,
Yeah,
hmm.
and just people just didn't want one more app, right?
Right.
Uh, but yeah, so we made that shift to the web, and then all of a sudden we were at 90% participation rates.
Hmm,
Uh, 5 months later, we had 3 local groups using it on a monthly basis, and just getting more and more usage over
hmm.
time. 7 months after shifting to the web, we had our first subscriber, and so we thought we were on a rocket ship to the moon, as
Yeah.
every startup founder does when they get their first check.
So before we go on to like, because I know there's like a big shift, happening after this. What from your perspective, were you doing all of this while also in like startup accelerators? Were you in that ecosystem, or were you building and being in business school? Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that experience also helps how you frame your next stage, right? Like knowing where to go from what stage,
Sure.
ideation
Yeah.
to implementation, stuff like that.
Yeah, and so we started it in when I was still in business school.
Mhm.
So that's when the idea came, was like 2013. Actually raised some money and started building it. Started graduated in 2015, raised some money. We were in a lot of startup classes and a lot of startup competitions, so connected in the community, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
2015 we started raising money. By 2016 we had the cash, and so we actually started going on it full time. And then
Okay.
so I think we launched the first version around like 2017 when we
Mhm.
actually launched that first Android and iPhone app.
Mhm. And just you and your best friend,
Yeah,
two-person team. Cool.
yeah,
Cool. Okay, so then you were on your rocket ship to the moon
yeah.
and
And then so this rocket ship to the moon, by all the after all these iterations, this was like February 2020.
nice.
Yeah, good time, right?
You are on a rocket ship for a web app
For
for
in-person
events
events.
on February 2020.
Yeah. And so next month, that was our first paycheck, and then next month, COVID hits, and like every in-person event shuts down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lovely.
So how does that make you feel? Tell me about that process in your
I'm
head.
stupid, so it made me really excited.
No. You're not stupid, but I need
Yeah.
to okay, like tell me about it. What happened?
But yeah, it was like, well, just looking at it, like, going back, everybody's like, it's gonna last 2 weeks, right? And we kept believing that it was gonna last 2 weeks for like,
Yeah.
what, 2 years? Um, but so like my thoughts on it, like I started because I couldn't be going to events, I was attending online events
Mm.
that our existing clients were putting on, right? And oh god, did they suck. But not like every online event sucked. Like every single online event sucked
Yeah.
forever, right?
Mhm.
And so it was just like problem after problem after problem after problem. And as a startup founder, that makes me excited, right?
Yeah.
Because when we have a communication product for events, and there's events where there's like no communication possible, it's like, hey, I think we've got a really good potential opportunity
Mhm.
in working to like increase communication, interactivity, and just overall audience engagement at online events.
Which I'm glad you brought that up because we're going to talk about that in our next episode of the psychology behind engagement and why it's important. And
Right.
we have two good stories to share. We won't share them now, but yeah, I'm excited about that one because it's all related.
Yeah.
Hey,
But yeah, so that's me as a startup founder. Problems are cool. I think I've realized that I'm a bit of a chaos addict, so that's like when I'm the most excited. But so we started selling it, and our clients, bless their hearts, were using it. They were doing like Zoom events, some were doing YouTube events, and then they were using our product as like a sidecar
hmm,
product.
hmm,
So like they had like the stream on YouTube or the stream on Zoom, and then they were using our product to like accompany it, make it better.
hmm,
That was It was honestly tough for people though, to have be like use two products at one time, and like
hmm.
people aren't tech friendly enough, so it was tough for them to get the same engagement they would in person.
Right.
uh, and then so we started working towards, in the pandemic, we're like constantly just evolving, right?
Hmm.
But working towards being like a one stop shop for online events.
Right.
At the same time, we always were thinking like in-person events were going to come back in 2 weeks. So everything we were building so the same exact product would also work for in-person events. So like
Mhm.
literally we were doing this because we were trying to get people onboarded for an event they were planning multiple months out. And they're like, well, how do I commit to a product if I don't even know if I'm going to have a venue or like a
Right.
live stream? It's like,
Mhm.
well, with this, you can use it either way. So if you put all this work into like filling it out with profiles, with all this different your branding, like everything,
Mhm.
if like if we're all blessed and the world opens back up, then your attendees can use it on their mobile devices and in place of those paper programs you're going to spend a couple grand on anyways.
Right. Oh, that buy-in of paper programs versus digital is like, it's I don't understand why it's hard now. Still, I'm like, people want paper programs. No, they don't. You're just
Nobody
wasting.
does. Yeah,
Nobody does.
I've actually got a couple in my sock drawer.
Yeah.
Like, so
I
I
don't
don't
even
know if
keep
that's
like
valuable.
scrap paper scraps
But my
anymore.
picture's on there. It's in my sock drawer. And I don't know, it costs some event organizer $5. I hope they're knowing that's worth it right now.
Side note on that, we have to I also understand that not everyone has a bunch of data on their phone or like free data where they can just load a digital app or a website and like scan it. What if they have like problems seeing? Like this is a whole accessibility conversation. You almost have to have both, but like I wish we could go towards like the online resource because that can be changed at any time. If something updates, you don't have to. There's no Buzz it 1.0 that can like tell everyone like, hey, this session
Totally.
is running long, unless it's an
Yeah.
app, unless you're investing, 10, $12,000 for a 2-day event that people
Yeah.
don't use. So
Yeah.
anyways, that's a whole nother episode.
Yeah. Absolutely. But
um
yeah,
yeah.
that's the kind of where we really made the biggest shift for us, I guess, for
Mhm.
events was like kind of accidentally becoming a hybrid product. Because really we just our event MVP for our first customer, like it was weak. There's basically nothing going on there.
Yeah.
But it solved some problems. It eliminated paper programs. It made a lot of changes, right?
Mhm.
And so they liked that. But then we like kind of accidentally fell into this building for hybrid, and so that's
Mhm.
why at this point, from what I'm aware of, we are the only native hybrid product built for single track events. So like the size of events we normally work with.
Right.
So it's fully on the web. One click, one QR code scan, and people are in. So super easy access, and every audience member can use it, which makes every audience member, whether they're on site or online, have basically the exact same
Mhm.
like access, right? And it's very hard to find that in any other product.
Right.
Almost always, online attendees are like second class citizens. In-person attendees don't even know they're there, and that's why people people that's why event organizers say, but online events suck. It's like, yeah, it's because you make them suck.
Yeah, right. It's not because it's an afterthought or like you
Yeah,
didn't think
exactly. Yeah,
about your audio or you didn't think about the engagement
yeah,
and
people
stuff
don't
like that.
like them, as I say, it's 'cause you're not doing them well,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. You're just having a Zoom meeting and it's
Totally.
streaming.
Yeah,
That's not a event. Yeah,
I
so
think
you're a full web-based hybrid solution for single track events.
yeah,
That's the thing.
that's where we are. And so like
Yeah.
the hardest thing for us now is like deciding on exactly which market to focus on. Because as a
Mhm.
chaos addict, I find the real life events where all the money is kind of boring. Like I love
Yeah.
that we can make sales there, but it's like it feels like there's not as much interesting new ground to explore, right?
Mhm.
So that's the
Mhm.
most like difficult thing for myself about like investing my time in it. Even though I know that's going to pay back the most, it's like I want to do the new stuff,
Yeah.
as stupid as that is. Online events definitely like people. It's something that's just going to grow so much.
Mhm.
Because as people like build out the standard operating procedures for them and start to learn what really works, and
Mhm.
people start seeing the payback from it, it's going to be bananas. Like
Yeah.
you like the just like the costs are so much lower.
Yeah.
You can do things so much more often. You get so much more information from people. Like it's
Mhm.
it's kind of insane that it's not fully done yet, but it's just that it's new. And then hybrid is like, there's definitely a big immediate need. But people find it so difficult because there's, again, like barely any standard operating procedure,
Mm-hmm.
that it's hard to get people to like, it's a tough customer. It's like herding cats to get people to do it sometimes. Like even if
Yeah.
they want to do it, they're like, I want to do it. But it's like, oh, you got to coach them the entire way through. And so that makes it
Mm-hmm.
like, it's not really like a scalable SaaS product. It's like
Yeah.
you got to coach people through, which I love doing. I love working with event organizers and kind of helping them through and solving their problems. But it would be hard to make money that way in the long run if
Mm-hmm.
we keep focusing on something where I've got to do some hand holding and some guidance, right? So
Yeah, and the most recent one you were telling me about setting up, their audio and even in my case that I think, there's you think about the event design, everyone's in the room, you want to make sure that's good. And then you think about the online and people just forget about that. Hey, we have this tool, just put the camera, make sure the audio, and it's like it's two separate events that need to be and you can't coach. I don't think there's a very few people that can do them really execute them really well because you almost have to have two separate teams managing each aspect. You
yeah,
can't just have like one
or
person.
one team that's thinking about hybrid from the beginning, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. Can't add it in after. You have to have it
Yeah,
in the budget because
yeah,
not only does software cost, but AV people cost and,
they do.
all of that stuff. So, yeah. Chaos addict. I
Yeah,
think that's why we're friends, John.
yeah, it probably is. Yeah. But
Cool.
yeah, so focus like for the next little bit is like for myself,
Mhm.
continuing, like super excited that we're at show number 10.
Yes.
This was one of my really big goals for this year, is starting to like call it eating your own dog food. So using online events and live streams to market our
Mhm.
own product. I
Yes.
love doing this. Everybody can tell I have a hell of a lot of fun here. Um, and then if I can do that, and then just I'm going to make myself focus on the in-person events, and then do some coaching around turning them into hybrid when they want to.
Yeah.
And so I think that'll help us kind of stand out in the market
Yeah.
for the future.
Yeah, and I think, as far as getting to number 10, I would say that you are a big part of that because when I don't wanna record, when I feel overwhelmed, I'm just like, "Nope, I'm not gonna do it," and it's like, but we have this time scheduled, so it's very intentional. We're like, you do as much focus as we can prior to prep for it, but it's also like it does help. I think the next stage of our content will be really getting into like more of our expertise and also talking about things that like may help sell Buzz It more or like sell my services as an event coordinator, project manager from
Yeah,
both sides, since I understand both sides, so I think
yeah,
this is a really exciting time and I'm glad
totally.
you're my co-host.
Glad we're here. I guess, is that it for this episode? Or we got
Yeah.
what's next episode?
Yeah, we're going to talk. The next episode is the psychology of virtual engagement. So, both myself and I think we've touched on this a little bit, and then you, John, if you haven't heard our past episodes, we'll get to talk a little bit about stories that we've heard, so you can see why we come to you with all of these resources and these solutions because there's a story behind it. So we'll have a little bit of story time so that we can make sure that there's some actionable stuff that you can take from that to not redo it and lessons learned. Because I think every event should have a lessons learned, and I think a lot of people just don't think about it. It's done, it's over with. I'm not going to talk about it. No, you have to.
Figure it out next year.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, the worst. So yeah, that is the next episode, Psychology of Virtual Engagement. We will be back here and next week and hope that you will join us and make sure that you subscribe on YouTube and visit our website, rizpod.live for all the resources.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to my TED Talk, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for watching Resilient Events, where co-hosts Marissa and Jon provide overwhelmed entrepreneurs with a comprehensive strategy for using podcasts, live streams, and events to establish expertise in any industry. With real-life examples and events expertise, they'll help you finish planning and start doing. Only on the 100 TV network. Visit rizpod.live for show extras and freebies.